first place Baltimore Orioles, and of course headed off to Chicago and the Bay Area all next week. And we got the Ravens on the backfield beating each other up in Owings Mills. Luke Jones will be on the scene in Owings Mills. Here's a guy that remembers Owings Mills, the old Owings Mills and the new Owings Mills, the one-time BaltimoreRavens.com, one of the forebears of all things internet and Ravens.com. But he's now in Miami covering the Dolphins. He's been down there for a good decade or so. He is the Miami Herald's Dolphins reporter and insider, and the Ticket's Fins insider as well. You can reach him out on Twitter at Adam H. Beasley. He is one of our defending champions, Adam Beasley, running around in the heat in Davie, Florida. What's going on, man? How's your suntan going?
Well, I've got a great tan line where I wear a T-shirt and sandals at training camp. I'm not exactly getting that full tan. I'm out sweating, Nestor. It's hot down here.
I know, man. Where are you from originally? I never beat you up about that, but I should. Where were you? Like, where did you go to high school? I don't even know.
I'm from about 85 miles up the road, up 83, Harrisburg, PA.
You know, I've driven through Harrisburg. I saw McCartney in Hershey. I did not know that.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago, right?
Yeah, it was a beautiful night, sunset, Paul on the big hill there with the Hershey high school thing going on and all that. Man, you made that all right. I mean, you know, you always complain about the weather down there, but if someone would have told you when you were a kid you'd be running around chasing a football team under palm trees, making a living, it's a pretty good life you got down there, Beasley.
Yeah, I mean, I joke that when people ask how I'm doing, I'm living the dream, but in a way I am. I'm not working for a living. I mean, I know there's some long days. I know not everything goes according to plan, but my goodness, I'm talking and writing about sports for a living. You can't beat that with a stick.
Yeah, man. Summer of August, in August 16, here you are covering what we think might be a bad football team up here. Convince me otherwise, Adam.
Well, a lot needs to go right, Nestor, for you to be wrong. They got some major question marks. I mean, huge question marks on the defensive side of the football. I think the only position on defense where they're comfortable is on the defensive line. That's because they got Sue and Mario Williams and Cam Wake and Earl Mitchell, and they signed Jason Jones and Andre Branch. They got some depth on the defensive line, but other than that, they've got zero depth. The linebackers, the starters are okay. Kiko Alonso is the big question mark. We have to see if he is the Kiko Alonso of 2013 or the Kiko Alonso of 2014 and 15. He got his, had that knee injury in 14, hasn't been the same since. He's looked much better, so that's encouraging. But if anything comes up with him health-wise, there's just nobody behind him. But I'll say this, the linebackers make the secondary, look great, like talent-rich, because those cornerbacks, they've got some problems. Earlier this week, last week we heard Xavier Howard, the second-round pick for the Dolphins, who's supposed to start at corner with Byron Maxwell, out for the preseason with after getting his knee scoped. So that left it up to Tony Lippett, who was like a sixth-round pick, converted wide receiver from Michigan State to be a starter. That hasn't worked out particularly well. So Chiki Chedwa, a blast from the past, a guy who wasn't even in the league in 15, is running with the starters. I know up in Baltimore you guys are a little apoplectic about your secondary. You're like the Iron Curtain compared to these guys, man. I mean, there's some real concern down here about how those corners are going to hold up because they play the AFC North. They see Brady twice a year. It's going to be tough if they don't figure out how to cover some guys.
Adam Beasley from the Miami Herald, our old pal and defending champion, joining us here. You know, Beas, I got to tell you, we're Facebook friends, right? So you know I Facebook Live, and I'm Facebook Living this right this minute as we speak. And I have to write a headline before I have you on, right? And my headline was, Adam Beasley of Miami Herald says there are a lot of question marks for the Dolphins in 2016. And your first quote was, there are huge question marks for the Dolphins. I mean, what aren't the question marks? I mean, even when I looked at the depth chart defensively, I'm like, Cameron Wake, Sue, Mario Williams, all big name, big money, big draft, maybe big performance at various points in the past. Where are they at this point?
Well, I think Sue's still at the top of his game. I know he got a lot of grief last year because he didn't make the dynamic plays that we've been used to seeing, but he was very solid, consistent, always in the backfield. He'll be fine. But you're right to question the other two. Mario Williams had zero motivation to play last year in Rex Ryan's 3-4 system. He basically mailed it in, had the worst year of his career. Now the question is, was that a reflection of his level of ability at age 30, whatever, or is it a reflection of him just not caring? The Dolphins are hoping it's the latter. They think it's the latter. He's been out there with the ones. He's going to be a starter for this team. They hope he and Wake are ferocious. Look, this entire defense is predicated on that front four wreaking havoc because they don't have any shutdown corners now. They don't have any guys that are going to just get it done there. So they need to get pressure with the front four so the back seven can cover. Some teams have made it work now. I know the Giants won a couple of Super Bowls with that formula, but I think their secondary even still is better than what Miami's has. But Cam Wake's coming off the Achilles. Mario's got the question mark. That's the thing. That's the thing about the Dolphins is that if they hit on their gambles, this is a good football team. But how many teams hit on all their gambles? And I'd argue very few.
Well, I mean, we've had gambles through here as well, and certainly the Ravens picking up some veteran guys who right now don't look like gambles. The gambles of the Ravens look more like Suggs, Smith, Pitta, the guys coming back from heinous injuries as to whether you're counting on them, hoping for them, or hope to see some sort of contribution. The one thing for sure with the Dolphins is they've, churned through this thing again. How many years on the Dolphins beat for you? When did you leave the Ravens?
Those are two different questions.
That's right, because you went to Sportsline, right?
Yeah, I've been down here 10 years ago in February, which is amazing to think. But I've been with on the Dolphins beat for the Herald. This is my 5th season, and I've seen a whole lot of mediocre football. I don't know if I can't say that I'm the curse because it predated me, but I certainly didn't fix the problem.
Is this third coach for you? Sperano was first, maybe?
I did a little part-time work when I was on other beats.
But you've seen a bunch of coaches down there.
Oh, my God, the Cam Camerons. I think since I've been down here, Saban was the coach when I got down here.
That's
so
what
they've been through, in the last decade, they've been through at least 6-7 coaches, including interims.
All right, so what does this mean for Adam Gase, who obviously Peyton Manning would wax poetic about, and the chosen one? A lot of teams want him. What's attractive about being the Dolphins coach or about being the administrator for the Dolphins and picking players down there right now? I get the feeling as it moves on, the owner might have something to do with some dysfunction there.
Yeah, that's the thing is that there is no real clear hierarchy of who answers to whom, whose responsibility is what. And there was real dysfunction. You're right about that. Joe Philbin and Jeff Ireland didn't get along. Dennis Hickey had some issues with Mike Tannenbaum. It was just a whole line of just you look at it from the outside like this is not set up to succeed.
Well, they brought in people from other organizations. They weren't bringing these in through some pipeline. After Parcells, they were constantly bringing football minds in, people who had done things in other places, but it never worked out. You brought a little Green Bay and a little bit of the Jets and a little bit of this and a little bit of that. I don't feel like it was ever anything other than whatever Stephen Ross wanted, right?
Well, not even that. I think it's whatever Steve Ross could be convinced into doing, and that was the thing. He had so many voices in his ear. Look, Steve Ross is a brilliant businessman. He's worth something like $12-13 billion. He makes Donald Trump look like a pauper, to be honest. He could buy and sell Trump over 10 times, but he's not a football mind. He just isn't. He wants to win very, very badly, but he's not a football mind, and so he trusts easily. He trusts people that get in his ear, and whoever gets in his ear the loudest, the most consistently, is the one he's going to listen to. And so he would fall in love and fall out of love, fall in love, fall out of love with all these guys, and so you'd really have no overarching philosophy. Now they have a structure in place. Mike Tannenbaum is the football czar. Everybody answers to him. Adam Gase has control of the roster, and he has control of the team, and the players respect him. That, at the very least, is a good start. That's far beyond anything we had under Joe Philbin, because Philbin was a neophyte. Jeff Ireland, his issues are well established, but at least now that you have confidence in knowing that you might not think. You might have questions about the people in place, but at least you don't have questions about the overarching structure. And again, I know it sounds crazy because this is a billion-dollar industry and you would think teams have this figured out. But Steve he was, I don't want to say he was an absentee owner because that's not fair to him, but he was an absent owner. He's a guy that lives up in New York. This isn't his job. Steve Bisciotti, I know he ran another business, but the Ravens were his life, right? Still are, I'd imagine. But when I was
I've been to 2 practices this week, and he's been on the field both times. So, yeah, he's around. Yeah.
Right. Steve Ross, this isn't his life. This is. I would say it's more of a hobby for him. Just like Michigan football, he loves Michigan football, and he's a huge donor. And I'm sure he had a role in Jim Harbaugh going up there. But his passion is real estate, and that's where he made his billions. That's where that's what his legacy is going to be, unless something drastically changes in the next 5-6 years. So he has to rely on people on the ground, people that are here, to give him advice. Well, what happens when you have a bunch of different voices giving you advice? They all have their own motivations, and those motivations are sometimes in conflict with each other, and that's where the dysfunction comes from.
Adam Beasley covering all things fish down in Miami. The Dolphins in training camp as well with a new coach and some new systems and, the same quarterback. quarterback, right? And he's a quarterback that we saw in the Hard Knocks a couple years ago. We got to look at him, and we're waiting on him. And every time I talk to you, you say he's the guy, and probably if they're ever going to be any good, he'll be a part of it. I don't know if he's the thing holding them back, but at some point, he is the quarterback, right?
Right, yeah. So far, he hasn't been the problem, but he hasn't been the answer either, if that makes sense. I mean, each year you look around that team, it's like, man, the defense is bad, or the offensive line is horrendous, or they got no skill position players. A good or great quarterback can rise above that, right? You look around the league, the best quarterbacks, they don't have perfect rosters. Certainly over the years, Brady hasn't had perfect rosters, and they go to the playoffs every single year because the quarterback lifts them up. Tannehill hasn't been able to do that yet, and that's why they hired Adam Gase. They think if there's ever a time to fix Tannehill, to make him to be the guy, Adam Gase can do it. He got bleeping Tim Tebow for the playoffs, for goodness sake, all right? So his track record with quarterbacks is well established. I will say this, though. They are not wedded to Ryan Tannehill beyond 2016 unless he earns it. His contract is set to balloon next year. He's got a very cap-friendly, team-friendly deal for 2016, but for 17, that number goes up to $20 million. They can walk away with only half the pain, and I think they would if he has another mediocre season. So it's all on the line this year for Ryan Tannehill. He's a new dad. His wife had their first son, a baby, the first baby last week. He's got a new lease on life, and he's got a new coach. He's got a coach that believes in him, that lets him audible at the line of scrimmage. I mean, how crazy is it in the NFL that up until this year, he wasn't allowed to audible out of bad plays at the line of scrimmage because the previous coaching staff didn't trust him? Now, again, was that a reflection of Ryan's ability or the reflection of how bad the coaches were? Maybe it's a little bit of both. But we're all in down here on Ryan Tannehill this year from a media standpoint because we need to see, is this the year? Is this the year that he figures it out? If not, they'll be drafting a quarterback in April and May.
Well, they certainly drafted a guy that the Ravens had their sights on, a guy that many thought would be the first player taken in the draft. Winds up falling on the strangest way to ingest what we believe to be marijuana that I've ever seen. I've seen it done a lot of ways. Gas mask is new, and I'm sure he'll never, ever hear the end of it. And whatever inside job with his family and all that has gone on, it certainly has been an incredible drama. And now he's not even going to play tackle?
No, because they got Brandon Albert still, who's coming off a Pro Bowl season on the left side, and he's never played on the right side in his life, and that's Juwan James has that locked down anyway. So he's going to be the starting left guard unless something drastically goes wrong between now and September 11th when the opener is out in Seattle. Unless something goes horribly wrong, he's going to start at left guard for the Dolphins this year. But the question is, what happens next year? He's looked good in practice because he runs with the ones at left guard, but with the twos at left tackle to kind of cross-train him in case somebody gets hurt. And he's looked really good, and he's looked as advertised. I know the personal red flags made his stock drop, but him as a player has never been questioned, right? I mean, he's always been one of the most talented offensive linemen in the draft. It was always all along that was the scouting report, and the scouting report, to my eyes, has been correct. I know the Ravens got cold feet, went a different direction. I know he was maybe the third lineman off the board because of that. You mentioned that absolutely surreal.
Well, I mean, it certainly changed the trajectory of the Ravens, much like not drafting Lawrence Phillips in 1996 and drafting Ogden. I mean, there was no thought. I mean, if Tunsil was there, he would have been a Raven from everything that I know. The Ronnie Stanley thing was something that happened within that hour, and we're going to be playing with Ronnie Stanley here for the next decade or so, right? And I guess the Dolphins think they're going to be playing with Laramie Tunsil for the next decade or so.
Isn't that crazy, though? You think you do a diligence on the guy, and it's not like he got arrested that day. The video is from 2 years ago, they insist. Teams get scared, right? I mean, they get scared.
It wasn't a good look, dude, right? It really wasn't.
Oh, I agree. Believe me, it was the talk of South Florida for a month. I mean, we let off SportsCenter down here for 3 or 4 straight days, and for good reason. It's an amazing story.
And we both have had Ricky Williams, so you're right. Yeah, exactly.
But at the end of the day, he was smoking pot. How many college kids do that? How many college athletes do that? How many people in the NFL do you think do that? I mean, what did Ricky say? His guess was 60 to 70% in a recent interview, and I wouldn't be surprised if that's accurate. So, teams know their players do it. What teams aren't worried about are players making knucklehead decisions. They're worried about players making knucklehead decisions that put themselves in a bad situation. Like if you're going to party, stay in your house, keep the doors locked, don't let anybody know, have everyone check their phones at the door, and you won't get into trouble. But you let somebody videotape you smoking out of a freaking gas mask, it's going to raise some questions about your temperament and your decision-making ability. So, again, I understand why teams ran scared. I just think at the end of the day, if you did your due diligence on the guy for the 6 months leading up to the draft, you know he had some issues in the past. You shouldn't be surprised that maybe somebody took a videotape of it. But so long as he didn't fail any of the drug tests, which he and his camp insist they didn't, the league really can't do anything about it.
Adam Beasley covering all things fish down in Miami, joining us here. You can follow him out at the Miami Herald or at Adam H. Beasley on Twitter as well. Jermon Bushrod, there in Miami as well. Backup, though, right? I mean, we got a Towson kid, so there's a total local angle there and a guy that had a nice career down in New Orleans.
Yeah, and I think there's still a pretty good chance he gets a starting job, but it won't be a tackle. It'll be at right guard. They're trying him out at guard. They're cross-training him a little bit. Their guard situation is kind of a question mark. It's entirely possible, actually, that they start 4 former first-round draft picks and 4 former offensive tackles on their offensive line, and Bushrod and Tunsil would be the guards. I think at the end of the day, the Dolphins want him to win the job. I know he had a shoulder injury that really blew up his 2015 season, and he's still working his way back from there. But, I mean, we know what we have in Dallas Thomas down here. We know what we have in Billy Turner, and neither of which are good. The Dolphins had probably the 2 worst guards in football last year. If you go into the opener this year with all the resources they dumped into the offensive line, if you go into the opener with those 2 guys starting again, it was a failed offseason. It really was, because the guys that you thought were and should be better simply weren't. So I think at the end of the day, Bushrod's going to be the right guard, Tunsil's going to be the left guard, and you're going to see a pretty big, pretty physical offensive line.
What does Arian Foster look like with in Aquamarine?
You know, we've only seen snippets of it. I mean, it's only been 2 days of practice since he's been cleared off of the PUP list. The Dolphins insist that he smoked his conditioning test. That he was an absolute beast. He's looked pretty good out there, pretty fluid. I'm a skeptic. I'm going to wait and see until he plays in the preseason, not just because of the Achilles, and the Achilles is a real concern for a running back, but that he's on the wrong side of 30, right? I mean, that's kryptonite for running backs. That's when they fall off a cliff. So he's got 2 strikes against him. I don't think they really see him being that guy that ran the ball 250, 300 times in Houston anyway. I think they see him as part of the equation. They'll probably have, and this is a good advice for your listeners, I wouldn't draft a Dolphins running back in fantasy at all, because from game to game, any guy could be the featured back. It's going to be by committee. They like Jay Ajayi a lot, even though he's a little fragile. They drafted Kenyon Drake. I think the 3 of those guys combined might have 16, 17, 1,800 rushing yards, but I can't tell you who's going to have what, who's going to play on what downs. It's just too hard to tell at this point because they have so many options.
You sound like John Harbaugh talking about the Ravens because, I mean, they have 4 tight ends, they have 4 running backs, they have 6 wide receivers. They have no idea who's really going to lead anything. They just know number 5 needs to stand upright and is so far. For the rest of your division, with Buffalo and the Jets and the Patriots, clearly the Jets have a little bit of a bullet next to their name now, getting Fitzpatrick back and having gone well last year for them. But the Patriots without Tom Brady, we're always waiting for the Patriots to mix in a 7-9, aren't we?
Yeah, and it never happens. I mean, I think if there is a year that they have a step back, this is it. Brady this week turned, 39? Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah.
I wished him happy birthday on Twitter,
What's that?
I wished him happy birthday on Twitter,
Well, I'm glad.
Tommy
I'm sure it was heartfelt, too. But, Father Time wins every fight. You might hold him off for a few rounds, but at some point he's going to get that uppercut in and knock you out. And I think Tom Brady is not immune to that. At some point, his body is going to break down. He's not going to be the same. Look how fast Peyton Manning fell off a cliff, right? I mean, 2 years ago, he was still one of the best quarterbacks in football, and they won the Super Bowl last year in spite of him, not because of him. So I think at some point that'll happen to Brady. I don't know if it's this year or not. Certainly him missing the first 4 games doesn't hurt the other 3 teams' chances. If you're a team that plays the Patriots in the first 4 weeks, and the Dolphins are one of them, they're up there week 2, you have to take advantage. You have to win that game. Because when Brady comes back in week 5, rested, healthy, and PO'd against the league, about the league, and about the opportunity. Look, I think they play the Browns first in week 5, his first game back. I mean, that could be 42-7, right? It could just be an absolute bloodbath.
At halftime, yes.
Exactly. So if you're going to get the Patriots this year, you better get them early.
Adam Beasley, always talking the truth down in Miami, covering the fish for the Miami Herald. And out there amidst the palm trees, not bad for a kid from Harrisburg. Now that I know where you're from, I'm gonna give you a hard time about 3 Mile Island or, I don't know, the Harrisburg Senators. You know, my buddy Carl Delmont just bought the Harrisburg Heat soccer team, and our pal here, Denison Cabral, is going to be the coach. So you got some professional sports going up there. And the Hershey Bears were in the finals last year, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's not big time, but it's good. It's good sports, good local sports up there.
No problem. I'm all good with Harrisburg. Hey, great having you on, man. Stay cool down there. Wear some SPF 30, and I'm very disappointed that we don't have a trip to Miami this year. You know, it feels like we play down there every year, and then when we don't, I get bummed out because I don't get a couple days on the beach in December.
But the good news is I'll be seeing you in the press box eating those crab cakes.
You're coming up. That's right. I never look at the home schedule to think about who we play at home. I just know we play the Jets and the Patriots on the road. It doesn't occur to me the Bills are coming in week 1 and you're coming in here too. So we'll see you up here, man.
I got my reservation right in the harbor. So,
well, hey,
I'm ready to go.
I will not allow you to eat a tourist crab cake, all right?
Oh, no.
You got it, Adam. Be well down there.
All the best,
Bring me some stone crabs. There you go. It's Adam Beasley. Adam H. Beasley is the way to find him out at Miami Herald as well, covering the Dolphins. Nobody does it better. Been down there a decade now. Leaving the Ravens for sunshine and beach and palm trees and pretty girls. Weekend trips to Key West. Tough life down there. Key Biscayne, Davie, Florida. They got good barbecue, too. Cold beer. They have Venezuelan beer down in South Florida. That makes it even better. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We come in crystal clear, no static at all, just like Steely Dan. Our morning newspaper, 7 a.m. to hit your email inbox. That is brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life at Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Reminder, Tuesday night we have our head coach, Brian Billick, going to join us out on behalf of the Living Classrooms Foundation in Hampstead, Carroll County. We're coming back north to eat the crab cakes, drink the beer, and talk some football. We'll be swabbing for the Bone Marrow Registry and for There Goes My Hero as well with Coach Billick. And you can follow his journey out on Twitter at Coach Billick. He's been camping this week in Philadelphia and Washington and the Ravens. So we'll have plenty to talk about when we get together next Tuesday night at Greenmount Station with Coach Billick. Last but not least, any breaking news happens first on the WNST text service on the fields in Owings Mills with the Orioles headed out to Chicago and Oakland and San Francisco next week. The first place Orioles. I just like saying that. Even if they're not in first place, I'm going to call them the first place Orioles the rest of the summer just because at one point they were in first place. We hope they stay there. That's all I can say. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook Live, and on YouTube at WNSTV. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore. And we never stop talking Baltimore sports.